Right.
5 minutes each, Deputy.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. Chair, I'd like to start by wishing the Minister the very best to his appointment. It's a great honour, obviously, for himself and for his family. And with financial services and government procurement in his portfolio, a background in nuclear disarmament may prove to be quite useful. So I'd like to wish him the very best in his job. Minister, the Social Democrats are supporting the motion today to create a task force to look at the rising costs of motor insurance in Ireland. And indeed, we'd like to go further than that, and I'll lay out why. We all know that motor insurance costs are skyrocketing, 32% in the last 12 months, according to the CSO. We all know why they're rising as well, at least we're hearing some of the reasons. Underpricing, historic underpricing by insurers in the past, new rules requiring higher reserves to be put aside, elevated personal injury awards and lower investment returns. The costs, of course, are being passed on to motorists, with drivers being asked to pay an additional 50%, 75%, even 100%. Certainly, people are being stunned by the new motor bills they're getting, and some people, their reaction is they're wondering what they did wrong. Do they have sort of a crash that caused their premium to go up? Members of the Freight Transport Association, of course, reported recently premium increases of 50%, with some being asked for up to 70% more than 2014-15. And it's not just in motor insurance that this is happening. Home insurance rates have increased nearly 10% in the year to March alone, with health insurance premiums up over 3% in the last year. And this is in spite of 100,000 extra people taking out health insurance due to the lifetime community rating. It's still going up. The cost of health insurance for hundreds of thousands of VHI customers is increasing by an average of 3% since the beginning of May. This is the second increase announced by the state's private health insurer in the last 6 months, because it rolled out an average price increase of 2% just last November. And has been alluded to by other members, the insurance costs for business are becoming very worrying as well. The Small Firms Association reports that insurance costs have increased for their members by about 30% since 2011. A very significant additional cost for any firm to bear, particularly small firms around the country who are hanging on by their fingernails. This amounts to an increase in the average cost per claim of 8% in private motor insurance, at 27% in employer liability and 8% in public liability. So clearly the average claims are going up at very, very steep rates. And so the question is, how do we address this? Well, we've got to drive down the average claim costs. We can reform how awards are set by the Personal Injuries Assessment Board and indeed by the courts. And we have to have better non-litigation options so that legal fees are reduced. I was listening to a debate last night on this, and it was reported that 70% of claims are being settled out of court, and of course there's no record of those transactions. So the industry itself, and I think the industry is at fault here rather than the state, it has to invest in proper data sharing. It happens in the UK, it happens just north of the border in Northern Ireland. In fact, the same firms are engaged in very serious data sharing in the north, but haven't invested in the same thing here. The AA, as we know, have suggested that a task force needs to be set up to bring all relevant government agencies together, because obviously this is a multi-departmental issue. The problem is not just related to motor insurance, nor is it related to insurance generally. It's actually a problem for the cost of living and the cost of doing business in Ireland. We have the second highest childcare costs in the OECD. Rents have gone up by over a third since 2011. Education has gone up almost 20%. Cost of education almost 20% since 2011. Variable interest rates, we know, are much higher than in most European countries. So the Social Democrats support a task force on motor insurance, but we believe we have to be much more ambitious than this. Actually, we believe there needs to be a task force, be it an expert group, be it an Oireachtas committee or some combination of these, that looks not just at motor insurance and indeed not just at the insurance industry, but that systematically addresses the costs of living, the costs of doing business, and comes back with a multi-agency, multi-departmental recommendation so that people can get on with their lives, that the money that people have in their pockets at the end of the month can buy them more, can afford them a better standard of living, can afford them a decent standard of living, and indeed that firms, particularly small firms, can reduce the costs of doing business and get on with growing and employing people. Thank you.
Thanks for hearing that. I want to say at the outset that I very much support this motion, and I suppose the question has to be asked,